he'd recorded you in your office in Gore.
Yes,
Used an interceptive device.
yes.
And what did you think about that?
I was horrified. I felt completely violated because I just couldn't believe that anyone would do something like that, would be so desperate to do something like that.
Glenys Dixon, the former National Party electorate officer, speaks out for the first time about MP Todd Barclay bugging her conversations.
Somebody in a very powerful position, well, it is a criminal act and it shouldn't happen.
The MP for Clutha Southland, Todd Barclay, has denied he secretly recorded Glenys Dixon at the Gore electorate office where she worked. Is there any doubt at all in your mind that you were recorded?
Oh, none at all.
And you know that because?
Because I've heard people talking about things that could only be picked up from someone listening in, and I have heard that I was recorded from somebody higher up, and that Todd has admitted recording me as well.
So my understanding is that Bill English, who was then the Deputy Prime Minister, knows about the recording. In fact, Todd Barclay told him he had the recording.
That is my understanding, yes.
So do you know that to be the case?
Yes, I do.
The police would later investigate Barclay over the recording, and under the Official Information Act, the media gained access to the file. Large sections were blacked out, but Newsroom has much of this file unredacted, including details of the now Prime Minister's conversations and text messages on the matter. Clutha Southland is one of the safest national seats in the country, and Glenys Dixon was a highly respected figure, having served as Bill English's electorate agent for 17 years.
It is a true honour to stand before you as a representative.
Glenys continued in her role when Todd Barclay became the MP for Clutha Southland in 2014, replacing Bill English, who became a list MP. Based in this office in Gore's Main Street, Glenys's employer was Parliamentary Services in Wellington, but her job was to serve the MP. Stuart Davey had held the position of electorate chairman, working with Bill English for 3 years. When a young Todd Barclay took over as MP, Stuart accepted there'd be a few rough patches.
He was only 25 at the time, and to be given the job of the MP for Clutha Southland, we know quite clearly there was a lot of things he was going to have to learn. And I said that to people, just give him a bit of space. I'm sure he'll be fine.
So you supported him?
Absolutely, yes.
How did things transpire then? Because they deteriorated, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I'm not saying it was all bad. He was working hard, and I believe he was trying to do his best. But there seemed to be just some issues that were connected to his personality that just kept propping up.
And what were they?
It was mainly the way he was treating people, I think. Yeah.
I'd had a number of employers in the past, and I'd never ever fallen out or had anybody shout at me or yell at me in those times.
He yelled at you?
Yes, he did.
And did he do that very often?
Yes, quite regularly.
And what sort of effect did that have on you, because you're working in the office?
It was difficult. It was really quite difficult, but you just got on with it, really.
Glenys met her employer Parliamentary Services on 18 January 2016 to discuss the difficulties she and other staff were having with Todd Barclay.
At that meeting I was told, they asked me what the problems were, because I have to say that every staff member was having difficulties with the MP. So we went through that, and then they said to me that, that Mr Barclay had lost confidence in me, And that's when I decided, well, this just can't continue. Because I couldn't support the MP any longer, I needed to resign, so I did.
When you say you couldn't support him because...
Just the inappropriateness and the way he was performing in what I would think was a privileged position, and you just can't continue under those circumstances.
Parliamentary Services asked Glenys to consider her resignation, and she was put on paid leave, which is when she would hear Barclay had been recording her by leaving a device in her office.
I heard 2 or 3 days later that the MP had been recording me in my position, in my place of work.
What would he have recorded?
He would have recorded me talking to constituents, to other people, and some people came and spoke to me about very sensitive issues, health issues.
And highly confidential, I imagine.
Highly confidential.
Glenys believes her conversations with other electorate staff about Barclay's behaviour were also recorded.
I was very stressed, I have to say. I just couldn't believe that would happen, and I was very concerned not only for myself but for the constituents, because no one knew where that information was, and we still don't know.
Glenys officially resigned 7 February 2016 and was encouraged by a friend to go to employment lawyer Catherine Darzell. So just for clarification, Parliamentary Services confirmed to your employment lawyer that there had been a recording
Yes.
made by Todd Barclay of
Yes.
you in your office.
Yes.
Mid-February 2016. Back in Gore, a long way from the goings-on in Parliament, the rumours of the unlawful recordings were rife. So, Stuart Davey, the electorate chairman, stepped in.
I can't recall how I heard about it initially, but when I heard about it I was quite concerned, and so I had a meeting with Todd, just a one-on-one meeting, and
Man-on-man meeting.
Man-on-man, and we discussed some other stuff, and I said to him, now look, the allegations that surround you recording a message or recording a conversation, I said, you know, what's the story about that? And he said, I never tapped the phone. And so I said to him, did you record a conversation? And he said, I never tapped the phone. So, he repeated that 2 or 3 times. And so I left that meeting under the impression that the allegations weren't true. And so I was quite happy to leave it at that. Subsequently, I received some information that, in fact, he had used a dictaphone to record a conversation. And
who did you get that information off?
I'd really rather not say, but it's someone that I really respect, who was high up the National Party tree, and I have no doubt in my mind that they were telling me the truth when they told me that they had had a conversation with Todd and he had told them that he had used a dictaphone to record the conversations.
So you then, in your mind, had proof that he had, in fact, unlawfully recorded Glenys?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yet he told you that he hadn't?
He gave me a false impression, yeah.
What do you call that?
Being economic with the truth.
Technically he didn't lie to you though, did he? Because he said, I didn't tap the phone.
That's right, and that was true. But he knew what I was getting at.
And you found this out because he admitted it to someone high up in the National Party?
Yes, yeah.
And can you tell me who that is?
No, I'm not prepared to say who that is, no.
That someone is Bill English. While Stuart Davey isn't giving anything away, Newsroom has obtained his police statement unredacted. It reveals a text message exchange between Davey and the now Prime Minister. On 21 February 2016, Stuart Davey sent the following text to Bill English. Had a meeting with Todd this PM. He really wants to move forward and make peace with a grumpy ex and seems willing to do what it takes. He has an excuse for everything, but he took responsibility for some stuff though. categorically denies any recording of phone conversations and says the allegations are totally false. Is this correct? Bill English to Stuart Davey. He left a dictaphone running that picked up all conversations in the office, just the office end of phone conversations. The settlement was larger than normal because of the privacy breach. Okay, thanks. He didn't come clean about that. So that matter's all dealt with then? Yes, he and Glenys bound by confidentiality. Glenys's settlement large to avoid potential legal action. Had to be part paid by the Prime Minister's budget. Everyone unhappy. The text messages confirm that Glenys's settlement was clearly negotiated on the basis there was an illegal recording, because why else would part of her payment have to come out of the then Prime Minister John Key's budget? That is highly unusual. So by mid-February, Bill English knew, Parliamentary Services knew, John Key knew, and now so did Stuart Davey. Three days after receiving the text messages from Bill English, Stuart Davey went to the Croydon Lodge to the Gore Branch National Party AGM. He gave Barclay another chance to come clean.
The question was asked about Glenys's resignation.
Newsroom has obtained the audio of that very meeting.
There's a rumour circulating around the place that there was messages recorded, conversations were recorded, and that information was used against Glenys. I had a meeting with Todd on Sunday, and he tells me that those allegations are completely false. He said that there was no phone tapping. Phones were not tapped. For myself, I believe that the phones weren't tapped, but I felt that I had some information from somewhere else that the phone messages were recorded. So perhaps, Todd, you might like to address that.
Where did that information come from?
Oh, I'm not prepared to say where it came from.
Well, all I'd say is that it's a...
Well, could the member stand up and tell us?
I actually dismissed the accusation. I just remind everyone it's a very serious accusation. So, I mean, I'm categorically telling you that's utterly false. But what I would remind you is that it's a very, very serious accusation.
Yeah,
and I'd encourage you to support that evidence if you're going to pursue that. But just a reminder, so I can't say any more about Glenys, her retirement, her resignation, because it's bound by confidentiality agreements.
At this point, a committee member read out parts of the Crimes Act and Privacy Act to Todd Barclay.
My response is I categorically say that it didn't happen and it's a very serious accusation. So if you want to proceed with that further, then I strongly encourage you to, but I'd be looking at my options as well. I've given you a categorical assurance.
He's created an impression all around this district that he did not secretly record Glenys Dixon, when clearly he did.
Yeah, that's right. I think, we make mistakes in life, and I've been young once myself, and I understand that. But I think when you're in a position that he was in as MP, then his integrity needed to be above reproach. And so no one says that he's not going to make a mistake, but if you make a mistake, then he owes it to those that are people that put him there to front up and be contrite and put it right.
Well, he hasn't come clean after a year, so he's not likely to do it now.
No, I would seem not, no.
You've also resigned over it.
Yeah, that's right, I have, because I felt that if I knew that he had recorded it, and if down the line it actually came out that it was true, and people said, well, you knew what, and what did you do about it? And he had essentially broken the law. Well, that makes me as comparable as Todd, and so that was probably the main reason that I resigned. But also, I could see that it was just not becoming tenable for me to continue in the role.
Because he was lying.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah. Mm.
I just can't figure out if Parliamentary Services know, the current Prime Minister, Bill English, knows that Todd Barclay can make statements to his constituents and in meetings saying he did not record you.
It's very hard to understand, isn't it? It's not honest and it's like creating an illusion.
Following the Gore AGM, Stuart Davey passed on the information he had about Todd Barclay up the party ranks. So adding to the list of those who knew, National Party board members Kate Hazlitt and Glenda Hughes, and Clutha Southland Regional Chair Rachel Bird. By the end of February 2016, there'd been 3 resignations: Queenstown-based staff member Barbara Swan, Glenys Dixon and Stuart Davey. And the debacle in the Deep South gained media attention.
Have you heard the reasons why they're quitting? Have they spoken to you?
No, not directly about it. I mean, these are issues between them and their MP. I keep pretty well clear of the electorate. It's not my job to run it. I've finished.
This response from English is puzzling, given that weeks earlier he had communicated directly with both Glenys Dixon and Stuart Davey about the recording. Here it is again.
Have you heard the reasons why they're quitting? Have they spoken to you?
No, not directly about it.
And a few days later, the then Prime Minister John Key also played it down, even though a payment from the PM's budget had been made to Glenys.
Yeah, from time to time when you get a change of MP, you will get changes of staff because the style's a bit different. So I don't have any other details other than that.
Have you been briefed at all?
No, not formally on.
When you say not formally, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, no one writes me a report on this stuff.
Have you asked any questions?
No, not overly. I've had a bit of a discussion with Bill about it because he was the former MP, but it's not something of sort of major significance.
I thought about it for a short time and then I approached the police because I thought this just can't happen and it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
The Gore police began investigating if Todd Barclay had breached a section of the Crimes Act. Section 216B states everyone is liable to imprisonment who intentionally intercepts any private communication by means of an interception device. The maximum prison term is 2 years.
To politics now, and the National Party MP for Clutha South.
By early March, word of the police investigation had got out, and Radio New Zealand was on Barclay's tail.
I mean, there's been talk of secret recordings. I mean, can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I've seen the media stories about that. I'm going to dignify that with a response.
When questioned by the ODT about the investigation, Barclay said, "If they do contact me on any matter, I will cooperate fully."
I was pleased to hear that, but now I understand he didn't.
In July 2016, police contacted Todd Barclay on 2 occasions. The first attempt to phone him went to answer phone, and Barclay sent a text message back to police saying he was out of the country until July 29. Police tried to contact Barclay again then and left a message. Detective Inspector Anthony Hill's statement said, "I subsequently received a call from Mr. Barclay's solicitor advising he would not be making a statement in relation to this investigation." So, what was your reaction when Todd Barclay said that he would not be talking to the police, as was his right?
I thought it was very arrogant and it was completely wrong, because if he had done nothing wrong, then he shouldn't have had any problems about speaking to the police.
So you'll be aware that there was difficulty around getting a search warrant for a premises controlled by Parliamentary Services?
Yes.
So there was never a search warrant executed?
As I understand it, yes, there was never a search warrant.
Because clearly they would need to get the recording and the recording device that was used. And that didn't happen?
No.
At the same time police were investigating him, Todd Barclay was seeking re-selection as Nationals candidate for Clutha Southland for the upcoming 2017 election.
It's
been a rocky transition between...
Whenever questioned about the unlawful recording, his go-to strategy was to distract from the real issue, himself and the recording, and blame staff.
Obviously a disaffected aspect of former staff members who are, who aren't too comfortable with change.
It was a catch cry which we'd heard from the very start, from the highest level.
Well, it's not a matter for me. If there is an employment dispute, then the parties will take that up through the relevant channels that they decide to.
I think that's rubbish. It's not an employment issue, and it's really just trying to cover up what really went on.
And when questioned directly about the police investigation...
Oh, look, I don't know. I've never spoken to the police.
At the Queenstown Events Centre, at a Meet the Nominated Candidates function, Barclay lied outright when he was asked this question. Was Mr Barclay approached by members of the New Zealand Police Service in connection with several complaints relating to his conduct as a Member of Parliament? Barclay responded by standing up and replying no. By this time, things were getting nasty in Gore and the wider Clutha Southland electorate. The National Party's stronghold divided over their MP and the illegal recording.
That would be the two sides, people who believe it didn't happen and others who feel sure that it did happen.
It certainly has created a bit of division amongst people, which is a pity because we used to all get on like a house on fire. So that's disappointing, and it's going to take a lot of work to get that back. Yeah.
Have you or your family felt threatened?
Oh, do you think I really want to answer that?
The split in the party would also get personal. National Party member Lloyd Anderson of Gore told the Otago Daily Times a group of members whom he called the Evil Six were stirring up trouble. Mr Barclay was being undermined by former staff members, Mr Anderson believed. He was referring to Stuart and Glenys and their supporters. What in effect has happened, it seems, is that people who have stood up to Barclay in the crime that he's committed have been alienated and ostracised in the community.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yep. And
have you lost friends over it?
Oh, I've got people who who won't talk to me now. Yeah.
Have you been abused?
Yes, I have been. Yep.
I have been fearful, yes, and I have been threatened, and my family have been threatened, which is something to me that is very hurtful.
Who threatened them?
It's through phone calls, so you don't know who it is at the other end, but you know what it's all about.
So tell me what happened to you with phone calls.
Was late one night and I had a phone call. I picked up the phone and it was a male voice, and they said to me, you should not go to the final selection. There was a big pause, and I was told that your son's partner is a pretty little girl, and that was awful.
And this is to stop you from going to this selection?
And I don't know why one vote wasn't going to really matter, but it was just threatening.
And what do you think they were trying to do to you?
Scare me, really, and just keep you keep me from doing something like I am today, really.
Talking?
Yes.
They wanted to keep you quiet?
Mm.
Now, you're not the only one that's been threatened, are you?
No, I know of other people who've had calls and felt intimidated.
What is going on in Gore?
It's not like Gore. It shouldn't happen in Gore.
On the 2nd of December 2016, the police announced after a 10-month investigation there was insufficient evidence to prosecute MP Todd Barclay. No search warrants were ever served on Barclay, even though he'd told people he'd done the recording, including our current Prime Minister. Police had Glenys Dixon's statement saying this. Police had text messages from Bill English to the electorate chairman saying there was a recording. Police had evidence that Parliamentary Services acknowledged to Glenys's lawyer there was recorded conversations of Glenys talking about Barclay. We know Todd Barclay refused to cooperate with police, and in December 2016 it was case over.
I felt terribly let down by the police and wondered, is there two systems, one for politicians and one for the general public?
To what extent were you involved when Barclay was being investigated?
Well, look, I was a local MP. I knew the two people pretty well, but I'm not going to comment any further than that. I think it's matter's been dealt with.
Did it disappoint you seeing that all go down in your old seat?
Oh, it was disappointing. As I said, I knew the people well, an employment dispute, but that's been resolved and the police investigation's been resolved, so it's time for everyone to move on.
It's great to be here in Milton at Cafe Lowell with the awesome Southern Young Nats team. We spent the afternoon out door knocking and...
Speaking of moving on, Todd Barclay was re-selected as the National Party candidate in December last year and is currently campaigning for the upcoming election. Do you feel like you've been thrown under the bus by the National Party?
Yes, I do. I just think for a long, long time I've worked for the National Party, voluntarily given a lot of my life to that job and to the party, and I feel let down.
I believe that Glenys has been done an injustice here, and it needs to be resolved one way or another for the sake of the electorate, actually. It's just like this big elephant in the room that nobody can see, but everyone knows is there. But to act the way that he did.
Illegally?
Yeah, well, illegally, yeah. Is quite disappointing, and it seems to me that he's never been held to account for it by anyone.
And he is a Member of Parliament.
Yeah, it's about his integrity, it's about his honesty. When you've actually broken the law in order to get your own way and not been held accountable for it, well, that's really crossing the line as far as I'm concerned.